All right, guys, so just as promised in our last tech tip video, we're about to do a little work on this Ford. So easy Tuesday morning tech tip from Pugliese Speed Shop. All right, guys, so for those of you that don't know, this little guy right here, 1954 Ford F100. And as you can see, beautiful truck, right? She's a couple different colors, but don't worry about that, all right? We're going to take care of that, but all in good time, all right? So this is a new project for me, and I'm just like doing a very small piece of the whole puzzle. Go back and watch the video where I do a whole walk around on this thing, and the underneath of this truck, come on, I'll tell you, you wouldn't believe it. So what we're doing here is I want to show you guys just a little something. It's a relatively new process for me when it comes to preparation, but as any job, and we've learned this time and time again, the prep work is key. If you got, trash prep work, you're going to end up with a trash final product. So I'm going to get set up and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. All right, guys, so as you can see, this thing's a bunch of different colors, right? And there's a reason for that, so the black, like the nose here, that was all repop stuff, right? Reproduction stuff, all new metal that you can buy out of a catalog. And then some of it, and I don't know, I think that was as well, but it was painted like when under the hood was painted and stuff. The box was reproduction, so that was painted. The cab was not reproduction. I don't think they repop them, to be honest. But Scott found that in Pennsylvania, I think. Yeah, he said Pennsylvania, but it came from like California, Texas, Arizona, somewhere, where it don't rust. And then he found the doors separate. Things were painted basically, I think, just to kind of protect them. Put some color on it, see what was going on. But obviously, he was still buying parts, so it wasn't all ready to go. The doors were primered, and so they repop the rear fenders, right? But they only repop the one you can see I have laying in the other truck there. They repop those, right? Not this side. If you ever look at these trucks, this side has a spot for like the spare tire, right? So there's a little indentation. They don't repop that. Scott wants it to be as, original as possible, so he found one. See the old right there? It did not look like this when he got it. He bought it, I believe, up in Carlisle. One of the big shows they have up there. And it was rot-free, but it had some surface rust. And you can see we've had it all prepped up, right? See the end of there, too. So when he got it, there was one little ding. We'll mess with that here in a minute. You can see there was kind of scratches, like, see right there, stuff like that. So it kind of looked like the back of this car. See, like somebody danced a jig on this car here, right? So tell that's like it's grooved, right? And some of this, there was marks like that. So if you tried to sand this out, you'd be sanding for like the rest of your life. So what Jay suggested and what he did, local guy does dustless blasting, like sandblasting, just no dust. I don't know the science behind it. All I know is this is the product you get, and it costs like $100, $150. Well worth it when you think of all the time you'll be spending sanding. And then, of course, sandpaper ain't free, right? So, well worth it. So now we got to protect this now that it's properly prepped. All right, guys, so the first thing we're going to do is we got some self-etching primer. You want to use this whenever you're at bare metal. Before like flash rust or anything like that comes up. A little bit of this will save you a ton of problems in the future. So I'm going to shoot this on there and then bring you guys back. So there you have it, guys. She's all primed up. She's still drying, so I'm going to, obviously, as usual, the daylight got away from me, but temperature hasn't dropped yet. So I'm going to move her over here. So dry out nice, cure, all that kind of stuff. Not get no moisture in there. And let me do that instead of just talking. All right, so we got her moved over here, incident free. What I will do after it's all dried, I'll just like kick it over and shoot right there and right there. Be all good to go, and she's protected. Well, guys, we actually got some work done, so that's pretty dope, right? And hopefully we learned a little bit. Like, maybe I introduced you to dustless blasting. Maybe I introduced you to metal etching primer or self-etching primer. Maybe I didn't introduce you to anything. Who knows? But I'll tell you what I do know about this stuff. So, dustless blasting. You guys probably heard of sandblasting. It's been around forever, right? And I actually used to do that in the Navy, 100 years ago. I had a job for about a year where I just worked at this reconditioning place, and we would sandblast all these the SE support equipment, like for the flight deck. They tow the planes around and stuff. We'd sandblast all that and repaint it and do all this kind of stuff. And it was cool. I learned a lot. But that was, seriously, that was like 96, 97. So things have changed, right? They came up with media blasting and plastic blasting, little pellets. And because shooting sand under pressure at metal, it beats up the metal pretty good, right? There's a lot of friction. It's just, so especially with steel and thin steel, granted that's a solid fender, that's not today's steel, but there's still a lot of friction. It still beats it up, and it can warp it, right? The heat. So they came up with soda blasting. They use baking soda, and that's supposedly better, right? There's not as much heat, but you start using chemicals and stuff, right? So apparently there's some kind of toxins, and who knows. But the most recent thing is this dustless blasting. Now, I'm sure there's still dust involved. I've never done it, but I don't know how you can do it without dust. But they add water and a rust inhibitor because you're putting water. That makes sense. And it cuts down the dust, obviously. It also keeps the metal cooler. And you see, if you watch any of these kind of shows, people do a lot of welding and stuff, especially on sheet metal, you never run a bead, right? They tack, 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 tack. And so this way you don't warp it up. Same type of thing. You're trying to keep the metal cool. So the water and the rust inhibitor does that. And you're still getting everything clean. You saw how clean that thing was. It was awesome. So that's a little bit I know about that. We got a local guy, like I said, and I'm sure there's local guys that are going to do it. It's a pretty common thing nowadays. The self-etching primer, I kept carrying on how now it's protected. And it is, because flash rust is a real thing. I remember as a kid, we had, some sheet metal outside, and man, if just got damp outside, the whole thing was covered in rust. And I didn't know those little tricks that Rick at Ford F100 taught us a while back. I'll put that link in here again because that's an awesome trick. My old man had us out there sanding all the rust off, right? So before we had to use it. So that's a way to protect that, especially a piece like that, a fender, an original 54 Ford fender with the cutout in that. Yeah, forget about it. It's not an everyday thing to find. So that self-etching primer, not only does it do that, it also really adheres to the metal. Whereas when you got bare metal, you got the paint and primer needs something to bite to, right? So yeah, paint does bite the primer, but where's the primer? The primer's got to bite to something, right? So clearly when it was, it was blasted, it became porous because it got beat up, right? But still, it bites, and that's what you need. You can shoot right over it, if you want to shoot paint over it. I wouldn't recommend it. And I think most of the manufacturers of that stuff don't recommend it either. Usually then you'll come over it with a sandable, a high build. It's a process, guys. It's not just shoot, and now you're painted and your car looks great. It's not even close. It's a long, tedious process. So that's just step one on making sure that that's going to have the best coat that it can have, right? So then, like I said, we'll go on. And you see there's a couple little dings in there. I did do a little hammer and dolly work just to get it better. But I was more concerned with protecting the metal. So we'll do some more work on that, and then there'll be some filler, minimal. A lot of times, like a lot of those little scratches and little dings like that high build primer stuff, it's like it's awesome. So, but more of that to come in the future. Right now, I just want to show you guys what dustless blasting can do, what it can look like when you're done, the time it saves you. Like, I mean, it didn't take me any time. Jay took the thing and brought it back. That was awesome. My hands would be numb sanding it or whatever. So, obviously a good call. And we'll have a better product because of it. So, hopefully you guys learned a little something about dustless blasting and how it came to be and whatnot. And a little bit something about some coatings and self-etching primer. If not, thanks for watching anyway, guys. I appreciate it.